the older I get, the higher I need my cushion.
And a couple of today.
Yeah. I'm like, oh.
Sorry I'm late. I had to take the kids home and drop them off. I had coming, so.
It's good. Thank you for coming. Sashi Puki Jishin Metoktra Rira Lingshi Yunde Yampadi Sange Shindu Mite Guargi Drokun Namda Shimla Chuparsho Hidam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Ninyatayami Sange Chidang Zoki Nam Janchu Vardu Dakni Yapsuchi Daki Jinyen Gipe Sanamki Drola Panchir Sangye Druparsho Sangye Chidang Soki Jognam Ha Janchu Vardu Dakni Yapsuchi Daki Jinyen Gipe Sanamki Drola Panchir Sangye Druparsho Sangye Chidang Zoki Jognam La Janchu Vardu Dakni Gyapsuchi Daki Jinyen Gipe Sanam Ki Drola Panchir Sangye Druparsho.
So let's just meditate for a few moments silently. You can begin with counting your breath, shifting your mind into a neutral space. Count however many rounds you need to calm your mind and bring it to a neutral place. And then after that, try to recall all of your ethical and virtuous deeds of the day, analytical practice, meditation. As you review your virtues of the day, recall and think about a totally, ultimately virtuous being, totally pure virtuous being. Try to feel their presence and imagine what they might look like. All the virtue that there is embodied. Think of all the goodness that there is in one being here. Bring your awareness to that and feel it and see it as clearly as you can. And now, bring it to your heart and dissolve it into your heart. So homage to all holy beings everywhere. Thank you for coming. Tonight we are going to conclude the Vinaya review. So when Holy Geshe Michael originally taught the Vinaya course, the first part of the course was an overview of the vows. And the second part of the course was Lam teaching. Tonight's is a little bit interesting in that we get into how to behave towards a Lama, how to know if you have a good teacher or not, spiritual teacher or not, how to evaluate them, how to assess their behavior and what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. So the first half of the Vinaya course, when it was taught, was the Prakti-moksha vows, 8 different classes of freedom vows, individual freedom vows, right? And we said that vows. Well, first of all, we said that ethics and vows are the basis to become a pure being. That ethics and vows are the method, a tool for habituation, a tool to change our behavior so that we behave virtuously. So it's a list of instructions or guidelines to remind us how to behave to become the being that we want to become. Right? I want to be a pure being. I want to be a holy being. I want to be an ultimately blissful, clean, holy, pure being. And so my habituation, my life, my habits from time immemorial are polluted with negativity and affliction and self-interest and harming others and all sorts of things which are not virtuous and pure. And so because of that, our minds are not capable of understanding how to behave. We don't know what we will become, and we don't know how to become that. And so vows and ethics are instructions and guidelines provided by holy beings to lead us to that pure, holy, unstained state. Because like children, we don't know how to get there, we don't know any better, and we need to be taught, and we need to be led there, and we need to be instructed. So there's a series of vows from very coarse to very refined and subtle. And so the beginning vows are teaching us not to behave in very crude, negative, afflicted ways. Don't kill anything. Don't steal anything. Don't split happy people apart. Don't cause misery in the world, etc. Right? Very crude things. And then as we train ourselves according to the basic levels of vows, and we become a basically ethical person where we're not harming people in crude, gross ways in the world or ourselves, then there are more refined levels of vows to teach us more refined virtue and restraint from negativity. So the vows that we're taught here are from the Hinayana system. The Vinaya is from the Hinayana system, right? In the Hinayana system, the main reason to study vows is to attain nirvana, which is complete ending of any mental distress or upset. It's attaining a state where the mind is happy all the time, right? End all of our afflictions. Have a completely happy mind forever. So, the 8 sets of Praktimoksha vows primarily address the misdeeds of body and speech, and not so much mind. Right? So when we're talking about this level of vows, we're talking about how to restrain ourselves in the way we're acting in the world, and the way we're speaking in the world. And as we move on to higher sets of vows, Mahayana vows, Bodhisattva vows, and Tantrayana vows, those are particularly focused on the way we think, and the way we view the world, and the way in which the way we allow our mind to behave, right? So, all right. So, all right. So just to review quickly what we covered last week, we have the one-day vows, lifetime layman's vows, lifetime laywoman's vows, novice monk's vows, novice nun's vows, intermediate nun's vows, full nun's vows, and full monk's vows. So, once we've taken those vows, then the Vinaya covers the study of how you get the vows, how you break the vows, how you keep the vows, and what you do to restore the vows. Right? And it requires ordination to get into all those details for all of the monks and nuns materials. Right? So this course was intended as an overview to provide a broader perspective on what these things are, and to just have a general understanding of them. Right? So there are a couple of different things we said that can cause vows to be broken or lost. Right? One is you formally give them back. You undertake a ceremony. There's a text you recite, a scripture, and you formally return your vows. Right? Another way that one can break or lose their praktimoksha vows is to die. Right? They're for this life or for one day. There's a long list of things which, if it occurs, would break your vows. I was just having lunch with someone today, and we were talking about somebody that we both knew, and she was saying, "Oh," I was like, "What happened to so-and-so?" And she's like, "Oh, yeah, he's in the process of having a sex change operation. He's in the process of becoming a her or she." I was like, "Oh, interesting." I was like, "All right, well, 2 more times before he can break his bodhisattva vows." Yeah. So that's one of the things on the list, that, where you can break your bodhisattva vows. If you change sex like too many times, then you lose your, it affects your energetic system, and you can't really retain vows.
Oh.
I thought that was very interesting.
Is that in one lifetime, or is that
one lifetime. So it's like they're saying, like, well, okay, you can change gender once, Hi. Hi. Nice to see you. Hello. It's like, so it's saying, like, I'm saying you can change gender once, right?
She just flew in.
And then you can change back in case if you didn't like it. But you can't change back again.
But it's interesting because you can keep your nun's vows, right? They become your nun's vows, right? And then you get a whole chunk more.
Yeah, right, Then you behave even more.
Yeah.
So you just flew in?
Yeah,
Welcome.
carry on is outside.
Oh, wow, very nice. Well, welcome.
I pick up an allergies in the place. I'm like,
Yeah.
That's what I got.
huh?
So then another way to lose your vows is to cut your root of virtue, right? Is to just engage in such a high degree of negativity that you simply don't have a core of virtue. You don't have a virtuous enough being where those seeds can grow, right? Where those seeds can stay and grow, right? So, and then we go Vinaya goes into the results of keeping your vows nicely, and there mainly two results mainly. One is in the short term, which is that if you keep your vows nicely, you take a higher rebirth, some higher realm, human realm, or paradisical realm, angelic type realm. Right? And the second result of keeping your vows is that you attain one of the three enlightenments. Right? One of the three enlightenments. So. The enlightenment of the listener, the enlightenment of the self-made Buddha, and total enlightenment. Right? Total enlightenment being becoming enlightened with, or attaining nirvana with bodhicitta, which is you have the aspiration to benefit every living being and every living being suffering. Right? So, and then the enlightenment of the listener is where a person becomes enlightened in this life. They didn't have a personal teacher, and they sort of polished off the past. Completed the last steps of the path without a teacher directly in this life. Whoops, that was a self-made Buddha. Sorry, that was the enlightenment of the self-made Buddha, is one without a teacher in this life. And then the enlightenment of a listener is someone who listens to the teachings.
I can't teach Mahayana.
Doesn't teach. So, and remember, this is in the Hinayana path we're talking about. Okay? So, on the homework, because the second half of the Vinaya class covered Lam Rim, it was an overview of all of Lam Rim, but I don't want to go into it too much because we've had plenty of exposure to Lam Rim. And there are various questions on the homework. They talk about the karmic consequences of the 10 non-virtues.
Like the correlation?
Yeah, there's the environmental result, the consistent result, the personal result of not keeping the 10 virtues, right? Of committing the 10 non-virtues, right? So, 3 different levels of karmic results, right? And I'm not inclined to go into it too much. Sexual misconduct, for example. The environmental result is to have unpleasant smells and
living in bushwick, basically.
Let's call it a hot summer day in New York City.
Yeah, exactly.
Picked up, the personal result is we can't keep relationships, right? Competition for a partner. It's like if you steal love from another person, you can't keep love for yourself, right? Your mate is easily wanders and distracted and interested in other people, right? And people around us are inconsistent, and we have the habit, the personal habit, right, of inconsistency and wandering. So, I think what I want to do is just skip the homework questions to hit anything that's really important. So I want to review very quickly the 10 qualities of the Lama, and then the bulk of the class I'd like to spend on just talking about a teacher and the relationship with the teacher. Right? So, and so these are from Lam Rim, and they're very important. I mean, I remember even in the early days of beginning to study these things, there were so many questions. People had so many questions about, should a Lama be doing this? Can a Lama do that? I had somebody call me up from Singapore and say, well, we have a Dharma group here, and our teacher is doing this, and it seems really wrong, and what do you think? And I said, well, are you familiar with the 10 qualities of the Lama? I said, no. I said, we don't know what they're supposed to do and what they're not supposed to do, and we're really wondering if this is okay, but it seems like it's the wrong thing to do to question him because he's a teacher. It's such an issue in so many places. And it's so easy to misunderstand it, and it's so easy to it's so hard to do it well. So, just from the Lam Rim, from the Ornament of the Sutras, the 10 qualities of the Lama, just to run through them quickly before we get into the meat of it, is first that they're controlled and that they live an ethical life, right? They can control their impulses, control of their mind, and not have some kind of out of control behavior where they have to look at every pretty person that goes by. They can't stop themselves, and they have to eat everything that they come in contact with, and they can't stop themselves from being jealous, and they can't control their negativities or their afflictions of their basic ethical life, right? So that's really first. And second, peaceful in the sense that they have training of concentration, training of meditation. Meditation and meditative ability is a fundamental component of this path and practice. And so someone who doesn't understand meditation, someone who doesn't know how to meditate, will be fairly limited in what they can lead a student to attain and to realize, right? Third, they need to, it's called completely peaceful in the sense that they have the training of wisdom particularly. So what does it mean completely peaceful, and why is it associated with the training of wisdom? If you think about it, if you understand the nature of reality, if you have a deep training in wisdom, if you understand emptiness, if you understand projections, if you understand where things are really coming from, much easier to not buy into the drama and the affliction and all of the issues of life, right? Someone who's really deeply abiding in or deeply understanding emptiness, the nature of projections and the nature of reality is not going to be easily drawn into misbehavior or some kind of problematic activity of their own, you could say, right? The fourth is with exceedingly good qualities, in the sense of possessing spiritual qualities which are greater than that as a student. So it's like anything, you can't learn from someone who's not better than you. If you go to learn an instrument or dance or swim or and they can't tell you that you're moving your arm incorrectly or you're breathing incorrectly or whatever the case might be, then they can't bring you up and they can't help you to improve. So almost by definition, a teacher cannot bring you beyond their level personally. I have to say that from the perspective of passing a lineage, saying this is what I heard, here's the information, that can be very valuable, right? But then there comes a certain point when one wants to have a personal relationship with the teacher, or wants personal advice or personal instruction from the teacher, and they have to have been there and done it and understand it more so than you to be able to offer that. So that's the point here. Number 5 is having effort in the sense of being willing to dedicate their life energy to achieve their ultimate goals and to help other people achieve their ultimate goals. Their personal ultimate goals and the ultimate goals of their disciple or their student, right? If they're not committed, if they're not effortful, if they're not willing to put time and energy into attaining their spiritual goals, how would they be a good spiritual practitioner, right? How would they be a good role model? Somebody who says, yeah, I understand all these things, but it's not worth my time, and it's not worth my effort, it's not worth my energy. Why would they be a good role model as a teacher? And then secondly, if they're not willing to make effort to help their students and disciples to achieve their spiritual goals, then also not a great teacher, right? They're not manifesting and demonstrating and engaging in a compassionate, loving way to help those around them, put an end to their suffering. So, also not a great teacher, right? It's just sort of like, well, I'm busy with other things, and good luck with that, right? So, all right, number 6, rich in scripture in the sense of having studied the 3 collections of scripture deeply. As I was saying before, one can pass on a lot of intellectual knowledge if they have it, right? Which is important. Number 7 is having a deep realization of suchness, having realized emptiness, or at least, having a very, very, very good intellectual understanding, right? Understanding emptiness from the first time someone hears about emptiness, they have an understanding of it, at the very basic level, all the way up to sophisticated philosophical position of different schools of ancient India and Buddhism, to having the direct experience and communion with ultimate reality where they then know directly what it is and can act from a place of knowing and realization, right? And Brady is a master teacher in the sense of teaching to the disciple's capacity, not above, not below. Sometimes students get very frustrated because you go in and it takes forever. It's like little drinking from a tiny little straw where you can't get enough, or perhaps you're drinking from a fire hose and you just can't deal with it and you can't cope, it blows you away, right? Very important that a teacher is able to present the material at an appropriate level in a way where it can be taken in and used in a meaningful way, right? Number 9 is the image of love, in that they have the motivation of caring about the disciples or their students and loving the disciples and really sincerely wanting them to be happy, rather than having other motives of reputation or ego or esteem or supporting themselves or being able to travel to a new country or whatever the case might be. So very important that they have the right motivation in their teaching. It really underlies everything. So you can have someone who's a great scholar, makes a lot of effort, but don't much care, and then not the best teacher to associate with, right? And then last is overcoming all distaste, in the sense that they're willing to say the same thing over and over and over again. I mean, really one of the jobs of a teacher is to continue to remind people of what they already know. I mean, there's the initial presentation of the material, right? It's like, here's some ideas that are important for you to learn and understand in your life and in your spiritual evolution, right? And then we teach it. And then people go, oh, that's great, thank you. And then they go watch a movie and forget all about it, right? Or forget 98% of it, or whatever it is, right? And they come back, a week later, a month later, a year later, and you repeat yourself. Hopefully in a new and interesting way that they haven't heard before. And I go, oh yeah, that's really great. Then I'm really glad you told me that. And over a long period of time of just repeating oneself, people remember eventually. It's the process of waking up, and creating new grooves, and re-habituating and reinforcing new ways of thinking. And it's just like, all right, I will, for months and years and lifetimes, continue to present the material and as long as it's necessary to help people and their suffering, right? Yeah. So those are that's the official list of the 10 qualities of a teacher. And the scriptures are very clear in saying, where do you find someone like that? Can you find someone that has all 10 of those qualities? Pretty tough. And so then what do? Do you just say, oh well, I give up? They say no. At a basic level, the most fundamental basic level, you want someone who's devoting their life to, ethics, right? Wisdom and compassion. 3 principal paths, you could say, right? Ethics, concentration, wisdom. So, at the very least, find someone whose life is about ethics, right? And who's living their life ethically, and who's putting a meaningful amount of time and energy into living an ethical life, right? Because that's the foundation of all realizations. It's the foundation of collecting the karma to become enlightened. And then as you can add to that, and as you can layer onto that, great. And so then we want to, this is a really beautiful segue to talking about the teacher and the Lama, and how to find them and how to relate to them and how to behave in relationship to them. And if you can find somebody who's barely okay, right? And you got to go with that because that's all you can get. That's all you can find, right? Then what, right? So, in preparation for these classes, it's a little unorthodox and different, but I want to do it. And so in preparation for these classes, I usually go back, well not usually, I go back and I listen to Holy Geshe Michael's original teachings to review the materials that he taught then, and then to add in my own material. So I went back to do that for this class, and it was a very good teaching that I don't think I could do any better better with or at. So I want to just play the portion that's talking about, you know, the teacher of the Lama. Unfortunately, we have an audio master here who can. That's gonna. It keeps turning off, so I have to. It's set up at the place. You just need to turn on the sound.
ACI, this is reviewed in ACI where
When it auto shuts off.
when I
Oh, it's playing. It's okay.
Ethical.
It's just the passcode lock comes on. Is the sound?
Should be.
that's cloudy, everybody.
Not yet. Alright.
Okay, now we get into the good stuff. This is the stuff I'd like to talk about. It's your relationship with your Lama. And that is, what is an appropriate relationship?
So I was listening to this and I was like, how am I going to listen to what I taught 15 years ago
And teach it again.
and then like summarize it and add my own comments to that? It's just like,
Just
no, it's
teach
not
it.
going to work, you know?
Yeah.
So I just thought, you know what? I'm not going to do any better than this. Let me just do this, okay?
Can you mime it?
No. I probably should just put the camera on the altar.
Yeah, I
right,
think
you
so
know,
too. Okay.
So I was just saying, we just got to a point where I was reviewing the material for class, and I taught the class 15 years ago, so I don't want to re-summarize what I taught 15 years ago. So I'm just playing what I taught 15 years ago for this portion of the class. Which is on the Lama and how to relate to a Lama and how to, you know, behave with the Lama. So
With the Lama. And
it's okay. Sounds okay.
you're done? Okay. What is an appropriate relationship with a Lama? How do you tell if you have a good Lama? How do you tell if your Lama's wacky? How do you tell if your Lama's being way on the line? And, you know, if your Lama bugs the crap out of you, and what do you do about it? You know? And any other Lama-related irritations and questions and issues that happen to come up. So, there are 10 qualities. I'm going to go through the... now, I'll talk a little bit first. Basically, the first thing that you should realize, let me say it differently, it's important to understand that everything you experience and everything that you perceive is a function of your mind and your projections. It's a very important point, and it's a big pitfall that many people fall into, to think that lamas are self-existent holy people. That if everyone says so, and if they got their picture on lots of books, and if they're the Dalai Lama, or Ken Rinpoche, or Geshe Michael, or any other Lama, that they, from their own side, are holy. They're not. Okay? The critical point that you all understand. There are beings who perceive His holiness as quite an evil guy. Okay? He cannot be self-existently holy if some beings perceive Him as evil and other beings perceive Him as holy. Okay? Nor can anyone else. It violates the laws of karma, it violates the laws of emptiness, and if you think that teachers, lamas, are self-existently holy, then you don't understand karma and emptiness, and you're going to get in trouble most likely, particularly if you spend any time around the lama. So what do you do? I mean, what is this whole lama thing about? You know, why do you see a lama as holy? Any ideas? Why do you see a lama as holy? Because your karma, because your projections. You are projecting the idea, the concept, that this is a good guy, that this is a holy guy, that this is a special guy. Okay? Will you always have that projection? No. Okay? It's entirely feasible that you will see someone as extremely holy for a period of time, and you will see them as a royal pain in the butt for a period of time, and you will see them as extremely abusive for a period of time. And all those things can be valid perceptions and will be valid perceptions from you, from your side, for you. Okay? Very important to realize, very important to understand. There are no self-existent holy beings. How do you get beings to appear holy to you? This goes back to the next question. Why wouldn't you have a holy teacher around? Why wouldn't a being appear holy to you? If I had the karma, if my mind functioned properly, I would be seeing each and every one of you as a holy Lama right now. Okay? The simple fact that I am not seeing Ellie or Anne or Dr. Sykes as a holy being right now means that I have not done enough virtue, and my projections and my perceptions are corrupted, and I have negative karmas ripening, and I'm seeing people as limited and am experiencing them as limited. Okay? It's a very profound point, it's a very profound subject, and it's a very important subject. So, how do you get a Lama? How do you get a holy Lama? How do you have a perception of a holy Lama? You must collect the karma to experience the resultant outcome of perceiving someone as a holy Lama. I.e., you must treat a being, or more than one beings, in the proper way karmically to plant karmic seeds which will ripen into the result of a perception of a holy Lama. Okay? That's why you wouldn't have a Lama in your life, because you haven't done enough virtue, specifically the karmic virtues needed in relationship to a Lama, to create a Lama, to have a perception of a Lama, to be around a Lama. If you're around a Lama, you are consuming and burning up vast amounts of virtuous karma. Just being around them, just seeing them, just hearing them, consumes and uses and finishes vast amounts of virtuous karma. Okay? And this is one of the reasons why in the teachings it says you must behave properly in relationship to your Lama. You must treat your Lama properly, because you collect the karmas in relationship to your Lama. Hold on, let me say it differently. You plant the karmic seeds to have a Lama from the way you behave towards your Lama. So if you don't behave properly towards a being that you consider to be holy, then you are not going to plant the karmic seeds to experience someone in the future as a holy being, as a teacher, as a spiritual teacher. Okay? So that's the idea. It's a little bit tricky perhaps, it's a little bit slippery. Hopefully it's clear. It's a very important point. So, yeah, Mike. Use it.
Why not you get in chance to burn up negative when you're around?
So Michael said, if you're using vast amounts of virtuous karma by being around a Lama, why aren't you consuming vast amounts of negative karma? So, yeah. Yeah. So Michael was saying, when you're around the Lama, you have the opportunity to use up or purify. Is it purify you mean, or to purify a lot of negative karma? There's an important distinction that I would make. When you're around the Lama, it's not that you are destroying virtuous karma, or it's not that you are burning up virtuous karma. The ripening of virtuous karmic seeds is the perception of the Lama. The fact that you are perceiving a Lama is the manifestation of karma's flowering in your mind and ripening in your mind, second by second, moment by moment. Okay? If you perceive a Lama in front of you, that is your virtuous karma ripening and being used up. That's what perceiving a Lama is. So, if you want to purify negative karma in relationship to a Lama, you can do that. Or you can accumulate a lot of negative karma in relationship to a Lama. It just depends on your thoughts and your behavior. You know, it goes back to an understanding of how things exist and what the nature of perception is and how karma works. You know, you can think of it as a projector. Your mind is the collection of your karmic imprints, not your brain, but your mind stream. Your mind stream is the collection of your karmic imprints. Okay? Your mind is, your perception of your mind is the flowering of the karmas in your mind. Your perception of me and everyone around you is the flowering of your karma. It takes trillions and trillions and trillions of discrete karmas flowering at any given moment to construct a reality. And there are vast amounts of karma ripening every millisecond to provide you with enough data to have the perception that you have. You can think of it as a projector, you know. It's a fairly good analogy to think that, you know, your mind is doing the projecting and it's got to have a lot of stuff that it's projecting out there to create a whole reality, you know, to create all of this, you know, all of the data of these six senses, you know, to have perception of all that takes a vast amount of karma, which is ripening, which is going off. So it's a little slippery, it's a little subtle, yeah. Question is there a way to shut off your projections and to just witness? If you are witnessing, you are projecting. According to Buddhism, the very act of being aware and sentient, the very act of being conscious, means that you are having perception. If you're having perception of any kind, it's a projection. So there's no way to escape that. It's not a question of the perceiver and the perceiving. It's a question of if you're conscious, you're aware, and you're projecting. There's no, without one, there is not the other possible. Yeah. Yeah.
One small thing.
Okay.
When you say, I heard it like that, you're saying if you're around the Dhamma, you're burning up more.
Not burning up. You keep saying burning up. You're not burning up. You are using up.
Okay, using up.
Okay.
You're using up more karma than you would.
I didn't say you're using up more karma. I said you're using up virtuous karma. I said you use a vast amount of virtuous karma to perceive a lama. If you perceive a lama, it means you have in your mind flowering at that moment a vast amount of virtuous karma.
It just means that it's difficult to see.
Think of it this way. If I see you as Michael, it means I have a mix of karmas flowering in my mind at this moment to perceive you as Michael. Okay? Now, if I have more negative karmas flowering in my mind at this moment, I will perceive you as a real jerk. Okay? If I have more virtuous karmas, yeah, well, it would be valid at the moment, it's true. But not fundamentally. And so if I have at that moment more virtuous karmas flowering in my mind, I would be perceiving you as a really great guy. And if my mind were filled with a tremendous amount of virtuous karmas flowering at that moment, I would be perceiving you as maybe an angel, or maybe a teacher, or maybe a holy being. So it's like that. So if I'm perceiving a lama, it means in my mind at that moment, I have a tremendous amount of virtuous karmas which are flowering and going off and creating that perception. What? Turn it on? No. Do that. So that's my point. Okay, my point is, be aware that if you are perceiving a lama, and if you are spending time around a lama, the very act of having that perception is consuming, is the expression of virtuous karma ripening, and it's getting used up at a very fast rate. Yeah, dude. So Deborah says, if you have the virtue in your mind to perceive someone, say Geshe Michael, as a holy teacher, then surely you would also be accumulating virtue at the same time. No, lots of people see Geshe Michael as a teacher or as a holy being one day, and then the next afternoon they're really pissed off at him. and they can accumulate a tremendous amount of negative karma. Stuff like that. Yeah. Right. Yeah. God forbid, huh? So Marie's question is, how would you create the cause to see me as a Lama? To which I said, holy smokes. Or someone like Geshe Michael as a Lama. It could be anyone, you know. And this is actually the key to the secret teachings of Buddha, to Tantra. Whomever you select to enter into that type of relationship with is it, you know. I mean, essentially, we all have to choose at some point to behave virtuously towards one particular individual, three people, or everybody. You know, the point of bodhicitta is to choose to try to be virtuous towards everyone, to try to behave well towards everyone. Now, frankly, in our lives, our past karma is causing us to see some people as better than others. You know, my valid perception right now is some of you guys are a lot nicer than others. You know, and some of you know a lot more, and some of you are a lot more experienced, and some of you are a lot more holy than others. And it's a valid perception, and it's the result of past virtue and past karma's ripening. So, normal, valid, conventional perception makes it easier for us to relate to some people as holy. And it gives you a platform or a head start to relate properly towards them. Okay? If I see Ellie as a teacher, as a holy person who knows a lot about meditation, who has a lot of experience, who's very pure, who's very virtuous, it's a lot easier for me to think of her as someone I should treat nicely and kindly and respectfully, okay? As opposed to someone else, say myself, as opposed to someone else who I don't respect very much and who I don't think very highly of. It's much harder for me to treat someone I don't respect very much and don't think very highly of in a pure way, okay? It's very difficult for me to make offerings to them, to be very kind to them, to be very respectful to them, to help them in any way I possibly can, to go out of the way to do what they say, you know, to do anything I can to further their noble causes. It's very hard for me to do that with somebody who I don't like, or somebody I think is just average, okay? So it's like that. The idea is that if the laws of karma apply to this as everything else. You must plant the appropriate karmic seeds to have the perception in the future of a Lama. And you can do that in relationship to various beings. You know, it's easiest to do it with someone you already see as a Lama. Okay, that's the idea. So you got to jump. You got to head start. Your conventional perception is giving you a boost to make it easier for you to relate to someone and to serve them and to do virtue in relationship to them. So it's like that. Now, in Tantra, the point is, well, maybe you shouldn't only think about one person that way, you know? And the same is true of the Mahayana, you know? You shouldn't just try to help one person. You should try to relate to this. You should try to relate in this way to everyone, so that you can accumulate vast amounts of merit towards everyone. Think about it. If you treated every single person as a holy being, as your Lama, what are you creating a cause for? What karmic seeds are you planting? You're creating a karmic cause to perceive a large number of holy beings in your future. Okay? That's the point. That's the long and the short of it. Okay? It's like that. Yeah. Okay. Moving right along. So, let's go through the 10 qualities of a Lama, or what a Lama is supposed to be like. So, now I'll say another thing too. Not to overload you or talk too much, but so what does it mean if you know you don't like your Lama today? You know, what does it mean if your Lama is pushing your buttons? What does it mean if this guy is just like seems to be really jerking you around? You know, or lady. What do you do? How do you behave in relationship to that? How do you treat that? What if one day you see the guy as a massively accomplished meditator, and the next day you see him as somebody who's really taking advantage, who's really out of it? Who's really a big loser? You know? Yeah, man. One way to look at it is to look at it from his side, which is to say from his side, well, maybe he's an enlightened being, maybe he's not, we don't know. If he is an enlightened being, he's trying to bring you up. He's intentionally pushing your buttons and and trying to test you and sort of cause you to flex your muscles of virtue to see if you can exercise patience and restraint and virtuous behavior in the face of difficult circumstances and conditions. So that's one way to think about it, of how he is from his side. What about how it is from your side? You know, how would you think about it as to how it is from your side? Yeah. So Anne says, you know, well, if you see your Lama as a jerk, you know, it's because you don't have enough virtue. It's because at that moment you've got karmic seeds ripening to see him as a jerk, and it's valid. You see him as a jerk. The point is how you change that in the future. These are the laws of karma. These are the standard laws of karma. You know, if someone's yelling at you, how do you change it in the future? Do you yell back? No. You know, you treat them nicely. You know, it changes. It changes your environment. It changes your circumstances. It changes things. If you see your Lama as a loser or incompetent or lacking and having serious character flaws in some way, you have a choice. You say, okay, I will go find another Lama, or whatever you're going to say. Or you say, all right, I'm going to behave differently in relationship to him specifically and other people in general to create the karmic causes to see someone pure or more pure in the future. Like that. Yeah. Yeah. Valid perception. Well, it's definition of terms. When you say correct, it doesn't have a meaning in Buddhism. If there's a valid perception, is that what you mean? That would be self-existent. You mean, when you say correct, you mean self-existent from his own side? No, there's nothing that exists in that way. That would mean that there's a self-existent thing. That would mean that that would mean that if a person from their side was always a jerk or always unpleasant, that everyone that ever came in contact with them at that moment in time would perceive them that way. And it doesn't work that way. Everyone's perception is unique to them. Why don't you just pick anybody and go with it? Well, on some level, no, that's not correct, actually. His point was that person has a nature, and it's a question of me being able to perceive it correctly. And that's actually the opposite of the teachings on emptiness. According to the teachings on emptiness, that person has no nature of their own, and we perceive them according to our perception. So, well, again, you have to study emptiness. Valid teachings, accurate teachings. Yeah. No. The fact. If the Buddha's teachings were self-existently correct, then everyone that ever heard them would think they were correct. And there are plenty of people who don't think they're correct. Yeah, everyone's perception determines what they can perceive. Yeah, it's like that. So, it's important that you're able to perceive it properly. Yeah. So I'm going to leave it at that. So, if you want to talk afterwards, we can talk some more afterwards. But we got to move on. So, going back to the Lama, going back to your relationship to your Lama, to how you see your Lama, how you behave towards your Lama. I mean, I can tell you from personal experience, you know, I've spent a lot of time around a particular Lama and some other Lamas, and it's a pain in the butt often, you know. I mean, it's a royal pain in the butt. You know, sometimes I see a Lama as being really way out there, you know, as behaving in a way which is incredibly distasteful to me, or in a way which I would never want I think are very holy, you know, or which I aspire to. And it's very easy for me to say, man, this guy is really screwed up, you know? There's some real problems here. There's some real inadequacies here. But if I step back and think about it from a karmic perspective, it's not about him, it's about me, you know? It's about my mind and my projections. If I don't want to see a lama in some dysfunctional behavior, then I have to clean up my mind, you know? And that's the long and the short of it. And it's very dangerous to think of a lama as being self-existent and then thinking that they're doing something right or that they're doing something wrong, you know? To have attachment to a lama is ignorance, you know? To want to be around a lama, to attach yourself to a lama in an ignorant way is very bad. You know, if you understand the nature of perception, if you understand the nature of karma, if you want to serve that lama, if you want to help that lama, great. According to the teachings on emptiness, according to the teachings on karma, all well and good. But having ignorant attachment, those are the basic three poisons which are at the center of the wheel of life, you know? And if you just exhibit them in relationship to a lama, it's still the three poisons, you know, it's still ignorance. You know, you're just taking your basic ignorance and doing the same old thing over again, you know, in relationship to a holy, what you could perceive as, and maybe do perceive as, a holy object, okay? So, whenever you're around a holy being or a lama, it's critically important that you keep in mind the laws of karma and emptiness, and you are constantly aware of the fact that whatever you are perceiving is a projection of you, of your karma ripening, your mental constructs, and your projections, okay? And if you don't like what you see, then clean up your own act. Now, having said that, what about valid perceptions? What about people who do perceive a lama as being abusive and get hurt? What about all the people who have been hurt by various lamas of various lineages, traditions, etc., etc., etc.? You know, there is the very real issue of valid perception. You know, and if a lama, if you're a woman and a lama is hitting on you, and you see a lama hitting on you, it's a valid perception. It's happening, you know? And what do you do about it? You know, how do you relate to that? You know, how do you think about that? Do you think, God, I'm so disappointed in this guy. I can't believe this guy's doing this to me. You know, I had such faith in this guy. And now look at him, you know? He's a schmuck like everybody else, or he's totally disappointed me, or whatever it is you're going to think, you know? It's extremely important to realize that it's happening based upon your past karma, and it's equally important to realize that your perceptions are valid and you must also deal with them on a conventional level. Okay? I know plenty of women who sort of wanted to do the dance with the lama, to sort of try to interact with him, challenge him, you know, see how close they could get. And I know a woman who ended up, she was, you know, a lovely, beautiful woman. You know, she ended up getting pregnant from a very high lama. You know, it's a valid perception for me. It's a valid perception from her. I don't know what the lama's perception is. He may see her as a consort, you know, or a tantric angel, or a deity, or something like that, you know. And she may see him as the same. I have no idea. But from your side and from my side, we have to be aware of what our valid perceptions are, you know. And if you see a lama who is misbehaving, a lama which is doing something which you consider to be conventionally inappropriate, you must address it on a conventional level, and you must understand it on a karmic level, which is to say, man, it's really, really disappointing that this lama is hitting on me, and I created this through my past karma, and it's not acceptable that it's happening, and I have to create the causes for it to be different in the future. Okay? Very important. Similarly, you know, if a lama is, well, I'll leave it at that. Yeah, Brooks. So Brooks' point is if I have really excellent karma, is it possible for me to have a perception the Lama would never do anything bad towards me or wrong towards me, like that, right? Yeah, I mean, that's what a Buddha is. A Buddha is a being who cannot perceive anyone doing anything negative to them. That's what it means, you know? I mean, again, I'll refer to the tanka of, the popular tanka which is painted of Shakyamuni Buddha sitting in meditation in full lotus posture under the tree as he attains enlightenment. And in the tanka, you know, he's surrounded by all the demons of all the realms, you know, and enemies, and they're throwing swords at him in the tanka, and weapons of all sorts, and shooting arrows, and the weapons turn into flowers, and there's just a cloud of flowers around them which fall to the ground. That's the meaning of that tanka. The meaning of that tanka is those beings see themselves as trying to do harm. The other being can't see himself being harmed. The two are not inconsistent. You know? And it's the same way with the Lama's behavior. You do not know if the Lama is trying to bring you up or is trying to hurt you. You must try to decide that. You must evaluate it. You must assess it. You must not judge them. You must look at it and say, I'm experiencing this according to my own perceptions. They are experiencing it according to their own perceptions. I do not know what their perceptions are. I do not know if they're trying to help me or harm me. But from my side, I have to look at it to ascertain whether or not I think this person is trying to help me or harm me, and I have to then act based upon my decision. If I perceive the Lama is trying to push my buttons to bring me up, great. I'll stay in a relationship with that Lama. If I perceive the Lama is trying to hurt me, I'm not staying in a relationship with that Lama, conventionally speaking. And I will go off, and I will create the causes karmically to have a Lama who will treat me sweetly and purely and nicely. Okay? You know, there's a saying that if you're ready, the teacher appears. Well, I mean, it's a bit of a trivial statement, but it's karmically it's true. If you have created the karmic causes, you must have a teacher. You can't escape it. You can't avoid it. Okay? Similarly, if you created the karmic causes, you'll get whatever teacher you created. You know, and it's not static. It's constantly in flux. Yeah, Dr. Sykes.
So that Lama that's clearly in violation of all the vows that you hold dear.
So Dr. Sykes' question is, what about a Lama who is clearly in violation of all the vows you hold dear? I would say that sounds like a conclusion. I would say the first thing that you have to do is go through a process of evaluation. I think you have to try to ascertain what their motivation is. I think you have to try to ascertain what their level of experience is and what their level of attainment and accomplishment is. And then I think you have to put it all together. I think you have to say, okay, I got to weigh this against that. It's possible.
Where is the line? Okay.
You got to decide where the line is. Yeah. Yeah. So Dr. Sykes says, where's the line? You know, what if the Lama's gun running as an example? You know, there's one of the stories. I forget exactly who the characters are, but there's a guy who's a hunter. You know, and you know, he goes around shooting sheep. This is in ancient Tibet, and you know, he goes around. He's a herdsman, and you know, he tends sheep, and every now and again he shoots one. You know, and a spiritual practitioner sees him and scorns him and says, Don't you know anything? Are you crazy? Don't you know what kind of karma you're creating? Don't you know what you're doing? And you know, another realized being is there says, you know, you just made a really big mistake. You know, he is a massively realized practitioner. You should be so lucky as to be shot by him, because he guides the consciousness of those beings to the pure realm after he shoots them. So you don't know.
But you can't say that to a person that has a perception of you just killed something.
Yeah, so Dr. Sykes' point is, well, you don't know. And you can't just let people go around killing. That's true. That's right.
And it's not from the average person. It's just trying to legitimize any kind of behavior that they can get away with.
So Dr. Sykes' point is, you know, you could go around trying to legitimize any kind of behavior that you think you can get away with, if that's the case. Yeah, people try to do that, actually. It's true. And that's why I'm talking to you. Because, you know, we have to use our faculties of critical evaluation to try to evaluate it. And every person is different, and every person has their own, their own way of looking at it, their own way of evaluating it. You know, and you've got to say, I think this person is incredibly holy, and I think they're pushing my buttons, and I'm willing to have it happen because I feel strongly that it's for my personal spiritual advancement, and I really think they're doing it with the sweetest of motivations and the purest of heart. And in fact, it's, a Lama that I know said that he would never enter into a relationship with a student. Well, let me phrase it differently. He said for a student to enter into tantric relationship with a Vajra master, that student should be willing to die, literally, for that teacher. That is an appropriate relationship between a Vajra disciple and a tantric master. You must be so convinced in your heart of your teacher's motivation that you would be willing to say, you know what? I feel with great certainty that if they killed me, that it would be to guide my consciousness to the pure realm. And I'm okay with that. Now, I don't advocate that, mind you. Please don't, take it that way. However, there is that element, There is an element where you have to say, okay, I've checked this person out for 10 years, for 20 years, I've spent, a vast amount of time with them, I've watched them practice, I've watched them study, I've watched them behave towards everyone for all this time. And, I gotta get off the fence, I gotta say, I'm gonna take a step back. You get to a point where you yourself feel that you've accumulated enough virtue so that no negative virtue can ripen upon you. Let's put it that way. That's a better way to say it, okay? If you can get to the point where you feel that you have accumulated enough positive virtue and karma so that it's not possible that any kind of major negative thing will happen to you, at that point it's probably appropriate to place yourself fully in the hands of your spiritual teacher. It's really hard to get to that point, and it's a major amount of harassment along the way. I can't tell anybody, look, this is the decision, this is the cutoff point. It's true, and this is what we're talking about. Certain people try to use these principles to their gain, to their benefit, and try to push the envelope as much as they can. Certain people try to say, look, I'm self-resistantly good. Just listen to me, Certain people have ignorant attachment towards a Lama, So it's like that, and it's a real problem, And we need to understand just what the Lama is. The Lama is our projection, and he will change. He must change. He must be in this constant fluctuating state according to the karmas ripening in our mind and our perception. So if you are around the Lama and the actual act of perceiving him is consuming your virtuous karma, you've got to generate a massive amount of additional virtuous karma just to continue perceiving a Lama, let alone perceiving one who's holier and holier and holier and holier. Okay, so it's like that. Yeah, yeah. She said, let's talk about the qualities of assessing a Lama. Here we are. It's time. So, having said all that, how do you check them out? How do you evaluate them? Sal said it's time to quit. Time for a break. Okay, I'll tell you what. Let's take a break, do the discussion groups, and when you come back, then we'll go over there are 10 qualities. There are 10 standard qualities that you use, 10 standard benchmarks that you use to evaluate and assess a Lama, okay? We'll talk after. You guys asked, how can you tell if a Lama is really qualified or not? How do you know what do you measure your teacher by? What's the benchmark? What's the standard? What do you check? What characteristics or attributes do you check about your teacher, about the Lama? This is also on your homework. So the first is Dula. You say Dula? Dula means discipline.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I thought they did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
So
Where is he?
clear, so wonderful.
Where is he nowadays?
Yeah.
Where is that teacher now?
Yeah, where do we find that guy?
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't seen him since
15
then.
years ago?
Yeah.
What? 15 years ago?
1-5, yeah.
Where?
Where was that?
In New York?
It was him.
No, I know it was him,
Yeah.
but where? Here?
It was from the original courses when they were
So you taught this course?
Yeah, I guess you, Michael, because it was on how to teach a lama and how to treat a lama, he managed to be out of town for that class.
Did you teach the whole course or just this class?
This class. This class. He would, whenever the subject matter would come up, which, for whatever reason, he would be out of town on occasion and ask me to do it instead. So this is, yeah, sometimes it's a surprise to me whenever I go back to prepare, to listen to the class, and it's like, oh, it's me. It's very hard for me to listen to myself teaching, and to try to do something with it. So I thought it'd be hard to beat that one. So I just.
It was beautiful. Thank you.
Beautiful. Yeah. So any further discussion or conversation? I'll just leave it at that.
I think that question still goes there, especially with the issues in our Sangha. Finding that line of acting with a nominal perspective, seeing people killing someone and saying, okay, stop killing, with the right motivation, understanding that you might be talking to an enlightened being. Because what I realized in that, because that question never goes away for practitioners, it's like, please help me find out that fine line between having this dual motivation in my mind, coloring everything with as much wisdom, understanding of karma and emptiness, and still acting in the way that it appears correct for the world and situation I'm in. So in that example you gave about the being shooting animals, and the person correctly said, "What are you doing? Are you crazy?" Yeah. It seemed to me that the person that had the perception of that being an enlightened being was the third party, going, you don't know what you did, you just spoke to someone who's highly enlightened. Because that's the only certainty you could have, that they had that perception for sure, because the person stopping someone didn't. And I have no idea about the shooter. So
it's to feel and think and relate to those around you as high holy beings, and to ask them to change their behavior is not inconsistent. It's not.
It's not inconsistent.
Not inconsistent. To say to someone, dear sublime holy being, dear great saint, dear subject, whatever, I see you, hurting another being. Please don't do that. Please stop doing that. Right? How is it not inconsistent? Right? There are two things going on in them, both of which are extremely important. One is the understanding that the events of the present moment are not self-existent. You're addressing past karma ripening and the collection of future karma simultaneously. Right? You have to understand that everything that we experience is the expression of past karma ripening. Okay? And the way I meet that collects my future karma.
Right.
So when I have done non-virtue in the past, and it ripens and flowers into a result, and a valid perception and experience in my life, how do I meet it? How do I engage it to collect the right karma for the future? Both things have to be addressed in the present moment. Right? The past karma ripening has to be addressed in the present moment, and the collection of karma for the future has to be addressed in the present moment. Non-inconsistent, you have to do both. In fact, you must do both all the time. Right? And doing one or the other is the problem. You see? Say, okay, that's killing, and it's wrong, and that's all there is. There's ignorance in that, which is a subtle negative karma. Right? To not understand that everything is the ripening of past seeds, and a projection and the expression of past seeds as my valid reality, right? To not have that process going on in one's mind, right, is a less than full practice, is a less than complete practice.
But there's something that just sits wrong with me about saying, if I see a lama misbehaving, it's because of my past karma. And, not like not accepting that this could be.
That.
Yeah.
Damn! And this is the issue, you see.
Right, I mean, that's what the kind of.
This is what the mind wrestles with, and this is what the mind has such a hard time with. Frankly, the more vested we are, the harder it is to be objective and to do this, okay? Anything where we have an emotional involvement, anything where we're vested emotionally, anything where we have our identity, ego, and needs and, aspirations and life tied up in, is harder to be objective about and engage in some kind of neutral, objective way. So I could look at two other people over there and say, he's yelling at her, and she's doing whatever, and that's the past karma ripening, blah 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 blah, right? Because I'm not really emotionally vested or engaged in that.
You're witnessing.
Yeah, it's fairly easy to be the objective witness, describing it nicely and neatly and tidily, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, when there's something I care deeply about, or which is very important to my life, or which I very much want to be a certain way on some deep emotional, visceral level, and it's going wrong, hard for me to be objective, hard for me to be neat and clean and tidy and rational, And so this is why Lama relationships are so much of a problem, because we're so vested in having a holy being out there from their own side. It's like the Judeo-Christian thing. There is a God who is good and right and just, if it's not the Old Testament. There is a holy being over there in heaven, and they are pure and from their own side, and it is all beautifully, tidily, neatly contained over there.
And therefore I can act like an asshole over here.
Or whatever, but that's not what we're doing. That's not where we are as Buddhists. As Buddhists, what we're doing is saying it's all a blank screen, right? How am I going to act moment to moment based upon understanding? Based upon understanding that anything can be anything, right? Everything is empty. At any given moment, anything can ripen, anything can happen. From the profane to the holy, right? And so it's very hard for us to even in a neutral sense, it's very hard for me, like if I have a cup of tea, to think, oh, there's some past karma ripening, and I'm going to have a nice drink of tea, and it's going to satisfy my thirst, and it feels good, and it's wet and flowing and liquid and tasty because all those karmas ripened, and I feel nice about it, and isn't that wonderful? And let me be mindful and collect some virtue right now as I'm drinking it, right? But it's hard to do it just when drinking a cup of tea, right? So let alone if you see someone shooting someone, or where you got this massive emotional rush, or whatever going off on unconscious and conscious levels, right? Or engaging in whatever kind of misbehavior, right? Or you have someone that's like the most important person in your life, who you're deeply vested in having them be a certain way, and behave a certain way, and act a certain way, and be whatever you need them to be, And they don't. And they're the opposite, right? I mean, right? And very hard to not just get whacked out and behave in self-existent, afflicted ways. So that's why the Lama thing is so hard, right? I mean, drinking a cup of tea is hard enough. So, but it's the same. That's why the pen is such an elegant teaching device, because it's so simple and it's so neutral. Everything is empty. All right. I collected the karma in the past to see this as a holy teacher, a cup, a pen, whatever. Right. It's ripened into the result, and I'm experiencing it. Fine. What am I going to do in this moment to collect karma for the future? Right. No different whether you're having a cup of tea, talking to a friend, or talking to a holy teacher, right? But as we raise the stakes, and this is the delicate part, as we raise the stakes to say, I understand how karma works, I understand emptiness, I understand about ethics, I understand how you put it all together into creating your reality and your world and your future and your ultimate paradise. I understand all that. And now I have to live that way, right? Every good thing in my life I created. Every bad thing in my life I created, moment to moment, in the infinite past. You know, every good relationship I have, every ecstatic moment, every moment of love or isolation or loneliness, I created. Okay, the best person in my life, I'm creating. You know, the worst person in my life, I'm creating. So for Westerners, somehow it's very hard to own that they create like the ultimate good. You know, like I'm creating this beautiful person in my life. I'm responsible for this beautiful person being in my life. I'm responsible for this saint being in my life. I'm creating this saint in my world and in my reality right now. It's very hard for us to own that, you know? So, but that is the practice, especially as you go, you know, further and further along into higher and higher teachings, and especially in the tantric system, where with that level of understanding, we say, I know how it works, I understand ethics, karma, and emptiness, I understand how I have to think towards everyone, I understand how I have to behave towards everyone, and now it's just a matter of practicing and doing it, right? I have someone that I took a vow to say, this is the person I'm going to practice with, this is the person I'm going to do my holy projection practice with, right? This is the one person I'm going to remind myself over and over and over and over again to practice holy behavior and holy projection, right? And it's not easy. They're not just being peaches and cream all day, every day, while you're trying to practice. You know, they're doing whatever they're doing, for better or worse. And so when they're, you know, when they're behaving nicely, it's like, okay, dear holy teacher, you know, how can I think and act to collect powerful karma to create paradise, right? And when they're behaving badly, okay, holy teacher, you know, this is what I'm seeing, and this is how I see it in conventional terms. And as a bodhisattva, I have to ask you to do this and not do that. And, you know, I have to collect the right karma for my paradise. Same, right? So whether a person, you know, whether you see a teacher nastily yelling at someone, which seems wrong to you, you say, you know, dear holy teacher, you know, it seems to me that that person's feelings are being upset, and they're, you know, that it's not benefiting them, and I'd like to respectfully request that you stop doing that, because it doesn't seem to be helping them, it seems to be hurting them, you know. And they might say, piss off, right? you know, you're not my disciple, get out of here, whatever, right? And then so same thing, same issue, exact same issue. You know, what are you going to say? How are you going to respond? Right? Maybe you have to piss off. Maybe you have to not go back for a month or three. You know, how will you think for that month or three? Right? You see what I mean? So it's same. And it becomes a question of how strong are we internally? How strong is our view? How deep is our understanding, and how much capacity do we have to process our disappointment and our emotional needs and all of our stuff, so we can stay in that karma and emptiness and ethics zone, right?
Or to actually take responsibility.
Absolutely. Because, you know, I mean, let's be frank, you know, our emotions knock us off center. You know, our emotions destabilize us. They imbalance us. They, you know, send us on the roller coaster ride. And so then it's the process of using our understanding, right? Our intellect, our training, our study, our cushion time to balance those emotions back out, right? And come back to a more centered place where we can then engage based upon ethics, karma, and emptiness, and not based upon feeling hurt or offended or enraged or rejected or whatever our particular flavor is that's arising, you know, based upon that unique circumstance. And, you know, therein is the challenge with spiritual teachers. It is their job, legitimately, as a bona fide holy spiritual teacher, to be taking you to your edge all the time, because that is your fastest path. Right? If they're not putting you up against your edge, if they're not putting you up against your limitations, you're not progressing as quickly as you could be. You know, if you're working at 50% speed, take you twice as long, right? You know, if they're pushing you 5-10% here and there, you know, once in a while, that's good. However, to attain enlightenment as quickly as possible, we have to clean our negativities as quickly as possible, right? How are you going to clean negativities if you don't even know you have them? Right? How do you find your negativities? How do you know that you have negativities? Somebody pushes your buttons until they're in your face. And you go like, ooh, maybe I have a problem with that. Maybe I have an issue around this, you know? Maybe I should look at that. Maybe I should work on it. Maybe I should change it. Right? So it's a very challenging process.
Yeah, especially when you are in a journey to trying to practice and your emotions come up.
Yeah.
You feel horrible.
Yeah.
You feel horrible,
Yeah.
especially if you are teaching something related with that.
Yeah.
And it's really hard.
Yeah, sure. You know, our emotions, the expression of our emotions makes it very difficult. But there's some kind of tempering that comes eventually, I think. You know, there's some kind of acceptance that comes eventually of, okay, I'm going to say this. It's like at a certain stage in our lives, we're constantly trying to push experiences away. I don't want to feel that. I don't want to feel that. I don't want to experience that. That's bad from its own side, you know. That's going to hurt me. That's no good. All self-existent thinking, right? So somewhere along the way, we get to a point where we can let that go. It's like, you know what? It's not out there, and it's not going to hurt me from its own side, right? I'm going to stop ignorantly trying to avoid certain feelings, right? Because I think they're bad from their own side, right? Right? You know, and I'm just going to be like, you know what? Whatever comes is okay. It's a ripening of past karma. There's no point in struggling against it. There's no point in fighting against it. It's inevitable, right? If it comes, if it ripens, it ripens. That's the laws of karma. And I'll be okay. You know, I can handle this. I can survive this. It's going to be, I might feel a lot of pain. I might feel a lot of sorrow. I feel a lot of joy. You know, and it's okay. I can move through that. I can experience that. I can ride that and process that, and until it changes, because every karmic seed wears out, and everything changes. And so it's trying to stay. I'm saying this. It's trying to stay. It's trying to maintain the conventional position that if I just keep it between the lines, everything will be okay. That's the problem, right? You know, our conventional approach is, I got bright lines here, folks. As long as I stay between them, life's okay, right? That's not living in alignment with the understanding of the nature of karma and the rest, right? So as we have things happen to us in our life, my experience is, as we have things happen to us in our life, and we say, you know what, maybe some negative suffering is going to happen to me. If it does, it does. It'll last as long as it lasts. It's okay, I can handle it, I'll feel it. I'll be hurt or sad for however long I'm hurt or sad, and then it'll end, and then something else will ripen. You know, right? I mean, there's a certain spiritual maturity to that, emotional maturity to that, right? To say, like, it's just karmic seed, ripening, ending, ripening, ending, ripening, ending. And it's a great practice to say, and that's why Tonglen is so great, that's why Tantric practice is so great, because no matter what ripens, no matter how good or bad it is, it's like, I'm focused on collecting the highest virtue possible every moment of the day, right? So, okay, terrible things are ripening upon me. You know what? It doesn't matter. I'm going to just do the right thing every moment of the day. I'm going to feel lousy, I'm going to feel miserable, I'm going to feel lonely, I'm going to feel sad, and I'm going to do the right ethical thing every moment of the day. That's a great way to live. It's very empowering, you know, and it's very, and I think you'll find that it really short circuits the negative ripening, you know, and really sort of speeds the escape loop, if you will. Makes sense? You know, it accelerates the you call it when you get out of orbit. Like there's a certain velocity, you know, like a terminal velocity. You get out of
Critical
orbit.
velocity or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that. It's like, you know, like you reach like critical speed to like, you know, to get out of orbit. Or I don't know what there's a term for that. I forget. But it's like doing that. It does having that attitude and saying like I'm collecting the highest virtue possible, regardless of how miserable I feel, like boosts one to that like sort of terminal velocity to like put it into that karma and be done with it and to have the next thing right. I don't know, I'm not really describing it well, but hopefully you understand.
So reacting to that ripening, either suffering or no. Yeah, it's thinking ignorant as an ignorant thing, right? Because
It's
it will be like
outside
we're
me.
thinking like it's self-existent.
Yeah, it's outside me, it's happening to me,
Yeah.
for me. You know, right?
But it's like we are like this psychotic in a way because we are all the time like you're having this ripening and the same moment you are realizing you're wrong and see you know you're experiencing this suffering or this emotion and at the same time you know that is ignorant.
Well,
And then you have this duality like
Yeah.
parallel. It's so you know
Yeah.
until you relax.
It's kind of what Paul was talking about. It is a valid perception. You know, we are having valid experiences. This thing is really happening to me validly, conventionally. And how am I going to respond? And how am I going to behave? I caused it. It's happening. It's true. It's real. It's my life as a human being. And I'm going to act this way based on my understanding and my training to change it as quickly as possible and create something else. So, like that. And the less ignorance there is, the less self-existence there is, the less feeling that it's holy from its own side, it's bad from its own side, the more effective we are in dealing with it. And anything where we have ingrained self-existent view is a harder practice. Which is why in some tantric practices, they pick everything that you have a self-existent view towards and throw it in your face. Let me show you some grotesque things and see how you feel about that. You know? Can you see that differently? Let me show you some things which are socially completely unacceptable. You know? How do you feel about that? Is that self-existent? You know? Is that self-existently bad? How are you gonna relate to that? How are you going to collect virtue in relationship to that? So it really, this progressive spiritual training based upon ethics, karma, and emptiness really is about starting with the easy stuff and moving along to those things which are harder and harder because we're more and more vested and because socially and culturally there is more and more self-existent identity or self-existent good or bad attached to them, right? And Alama is way up there on the scale. Because we are so heavily vested in it being what we want it to be. It is the holy person in our life, the most holy person in our life, the epitome of goodness, right? The thing which validates for us that there is a spiritual path that works, right? And my God, if my spiritual teacher, the best spiritual teacher that I could find, isn't really holy, oh my God, what does it mean? Right? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? Right? And so we're so wrapped up and so vested in that person proving something to us or being something for us. You know? Self-existent. Like that. And it's not. They're not. The fact that we see a being in our lives who is virtuous and pure and ethical and loving and kind and compassionate for however long is an amazing, beautiful thing. And a validation of our own virtue. A validation of the fact that virtue and goodness exists in the world. And then it's a question of how to increase it and how to perpetuate it.
Thank you. So Sashi Foki Jishin Metokram Nriral Shin Yende Empati Sangye Shindu Mite Vilargi Drohun Namda Shinla Juparsho Hidam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Ninyatayami Gewadi Egelokun Sunam Yeshe Zogzogshien Sunam Yeshe Legend Hui Dampa Kuni Tobar Show.
By the power of our virtue this evening, by the power of our speech, by the power of our intention, efforts, and practice here this evening, may you quickly come to see validly every being is completely pure and humble.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. I miss this place so much.
Lovely to see you. Yeah. Oh, wonderful.